So this conversation is titled Going to Work, How Do We Create a Recovery-Friendly Community in the City of Detroit? And so I am privileged to be graced with these three panelists who I consider to be who I consider to be superheroes. I was looking for like a word that could express that wasn't like crazy, but who I consider to be superheroes, who each are individually contributing to this space of recovery and SUD work in their own fields. And they show up on a daily basis to help individuals be able to recover. And they do the work. They're on the front line and they're seeing people and they're servicing people, and they're coming across successes and they're coming across adversity. And I just wanted to have this conversation in public where we can talk about these things and maybe flesh some of these things out that we're experiencing. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. To my immediate left is Monique Gaines. She is LMSW, CAADC, CPC, and all of the alphabet. She has gone above and beyond to make sure that she's thoroughly equipped to be able to serve the community. She is a licensed substance use disorder therapist, preventionist, and sober ally. From residential to outpatient treatment, Monique has worked in different levels of care as well as facilitated group and family education courses concerning substance use disorder knowledge and life and refusal skills. And then next to Monique, I have my good friend, Deborah Garrett. Deborah is a woman in long-term recovery who has worked in the field since 2008. A great deal of that experience being in Detroit. She is currently the program development manager for Echo Detroit, a recovery community center here in Detroit. And I am a hip hop fan. How many people are hip hop fans in here? Yeah. So if you was to ask me like, where's that rapper from or who they signed to, like I could tell you that real quick. Deb is the same way with like the big names in the recovery field. Like she's always like, I tell her I met somebody, it's like, oh, did you ask her about this and this and this? Do you know that she's contributing to this and this and this? I'm like, yo, so she's always on speed dial for me. So, and then directly next to her is my main man, Dwight Varder. Now, just in this room, there's been a couple of people, we had the little green room back there, and there's been a couple of people walk by like, Mr. Varder. Hey, Mr. Varder. He is a very important man to the community. He is a person in long-term recovery, 38 plus years, CEO of Share House of 15 years, which is a Detroit-based treatment and recovery center with a full continuum of services. A master's of social work from U of M, licensed by state of Michigan, state certifications in addiction, and a Navy veteran from the Vietnam era. So I'd like to take a second to give us a round of applause for our panelists. And so just to get the conversation going, I think the first question that I'll ask is, what caused you to this profession? What caused you to doing the things that you do, to have pursued careers in serving people who suffer from and deal in substance use disorder?
I'm a now adult child of... I'm not
Yo.
I'm now an adult child of someone that was abusing substances. And so I grew up on a military base for the first, kind of few years of my life, and my parents divorced. We came back to Michigan, and then that was it. As far as what I thought, I graduated from an undergraduate program, and then the jobs that I was looking for wanted me to have a social work degree. And I was like, I just really don't like school, but I guess I'll go back. And the only internship that was available to me when it was time for me to look for an internship was in SUD. And I was like, I just really can't right now. But really it was because I hadn't resolved what happened to the family system, 2 decades prior to. And so it really was not by choice initially, but I don't think I could have been in any other field of social work. It's almost no words because it's healing for the individuals as well as for the community.
I got into the field after I was stopped and charged with my third DUI in 10 years. And I made the decision then and there that I was not doing that again. Went into treatment. When I came out of treatment, I was given the opportunity to facilitate a group through CARE of Southeastern Michigan and made the decision to go back to school. My bachelor's is in psychology. My master's is in nonprofit leadership and administration. And I just have kind of not looked back. And another aspect of it for me was I had just divorced. So I had $30,000 in my bank account from the sale of our home. I was working for my family's roofing contracting company. So I had a stable work environment when I came out of treatment. And that really kind of offended my sense of social justice, that I had all of those advantages and other people don't. And what could I do to try to help see that that everybody gets access to recovery, because everybody should have access to recovery. And it's just kind of been very grateful to Mr. Lauder for giving me many of the opportunities that I've had along the way. But that's kind of, I was working for my family's, as I mentioned, for my family's roofing contracting company, had been for 18 years. And after my decision to go into recovery, my life just kind of went like this. And I graduated with my bachelor's degree when I was 50, and I graduated with my master's when I was 52. So hang in there.
Just I'm gonna give you the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth. I did not want to be in this field. My family is devastated with addictions. I grew up in a family with me and my sister, both parents, and neither parent was addicted. But yet my sister and I both became addicted. She was killed in 1975. I had 5 cousins who were like brothers to me. All of them became addicted, and all of them are dead right now. Even getting clean a long time ago, I did not want to work in this field. However, God had other plans. There was I'm a Navy veteran, and when I was in treatment, there was this salesman who came in talking about, if you take these classes, you'll be smarter than your counselor. And then I found out being a veteran, if I took some classes, I would get paid when I was in treatment. Can't beat that. Lo and behold, I ended up getting clean, staying in the field, and it became a passion. It became a taste that I acquired as time went on. Also in my arena, we keep talking about you can only keep what you have by giving it away. And I definitely knew I needed to keep what I had. So therefore, I had to keep giving it away. And that was 38 years ago, and here I am now still being pumped to give away more.
So, I think why I love to have public conversations in general. Well, I think why I love to have public conversations around recovery is because I think we all inherently know what it's like to come up against adversity and know what it's like to use adversity as a tool to cultivate wisdom and strength, and how parallel that is to every aspect of life. And when it comes to this work that we're doing in the community, not only is there our personal recovery or the recovery of our loved ones if we're an advocate, but there is the recovery of others in the community, and then there's the adversity that we come across within our fields. And so what are some growing pains? What are some challenges that you all see in your individual fields when it comes to serving people in the SUD field?
There are so many barriers to access for people getting the help that they need. I'm not a senior citizen, I'm a seasoned citizen. Being a seasoned citizen and a seasoned professional and a person who's been around, I have seen a lot of death. But what I have seen over the years It's a problem getting worse when it comes to SUD. But yet I see resources such as treatment getting shorter and shorter and shorter. When I received my last treatment program back in the late 70s, early 80s, residential was like 6 months. Now, if you can get 30 days, it's a miracle. Now there's 108,000 people died nationally because of opioid use disorders. You know, it's worse, but the treatment they're giving us is less. So I see those things as a barrier. I hear more money's being coming down the channel, but I don't see it on the bottom line where people really need it. That frustrates the blankety blank blank out of me.
You know, it's almost like there's some disconnect between the people making the decisions and then the people on the front line. There was a point in time where if someone said that their drug of choice was cannabis, and that was the first one, they couldn't be in residential treatment. Like, you couldn't get treatment because that was the first drug of choice that you named. So even if I went back, did paperwork to change it because they maybe had another substance along with that, I'm hitting red tape. And now I've wasted time, resources, energy just to prove that, you know, this person now fits in a certain criteria to even get services and treatment. Things like that should not happen. You know, sometimes depending on what type of level of care someone is in or, you know, who's funding it, the stipulations are, sometimes the stipulations don't make sense. In terms of if you're a certain age, now you don't qualify for certain services, and now I have to go into some other pot, but then I have to fill out another application for you to be able to get that. And it's once I make a phone call, I should be able to tell you general information and then get service. And then I don't want to sit at an assessment for an hour and a half and then meet all these different people in the treatment centers to start getting services. And then if I then switch to a different level of care, I have to sit through those same questions again and again. It's not going to repopulate. And so a lot of people don't want to, or they're not motivated at that time to sit through the process of ever-changing stipulations.
I think one of my biggest barriers that I could identify is not having people in recovery at the tables, making the decisions that affect funding decisions, that affect those admission procedures, that affect all of that stuff. We're very rarely given a seat at the table. And when we are, it's often a token effort. And I think that needs to change. And another thing that I would probably identify is as women, we face a whole different set of barriers than men do, and that often gets overlooked. Maybe I should just use my theater voice. And that often gets overlooked and not addressed. And again, I think that's because we don't have those folks at the table helping make those decisions.
And these are all things that, as a person in recovery, a person who used to do coaching, I would run into a lot of that. I think, I don't know about y'all, but for me, like it's very important that when I need the help, I can get it. You know, that little window where it's like, yo, like, I don't know what to do, and I'm willing to allow something other than what I've ever experienced to come in. Like, I don't know. Like, when I first got sober, I didn't even know what rehab was. I didn't know what treatment was. Like, I didn't even know what I was asking for. I just knew that I needed something that I didn't have, and it wasn't what everybody was trying to give me, because I would go and like, yo, something going on, and they may give me some Ativan and send me on my way. Like, I don't want more of what it is that I've been taking. Like, I need something, but I don't know what it is because I've never experienced it, you know? And so these barriers can sometimes be frustrating, and especially as a coach, like because of the stipulations, the insurance that you have or don't have, or calling Access. I don't know what the process is now, but when I was a coach, we had to call Access and get people admitted. And sometimes you'll call Access and not get an answer. And then, you got to tell somebody who's excited, or at that point of desperation that, like, come back tomorrow, and hopefully we get a call back from Access. And that never sat well with me, So there are a lot of barriers still, right? You want to share something else?
We talk about addiction or SUD being a family disorder. It's not a doubt in my mind, and what we see is a family condition, okay? But so much of treatment is always aimed at the person with the identified problem and not the family. The family is left out of the picture so often in treatment and every other way. And I think about a year or so ago, the theme was for Recovery Month was recovery is for everyone, the individual, the family, and the community. And we're focusing on individual, but we need to focus more on the family. This is a family condition. As you talk about in the community, we need to have a broader approach to help, not just for the person, but for the community, for the family.
Yeah, no, and I wholeheartedly agree. Was it Janine? So I spoke to the mother of a volunteer here, and she had said something that really struck my soul, which is that we didn't give up on him, and there's the advocacy in that, where it's like we're showing up for our person that's going through it, but also there's the advocacy for self, where it's like I got to continue to show up for myself so that I have it to be able to give. So like you said, Dwight, it's very important that we have support for the entire family, because it affects everybody. It makes ripples and waves throughout the community. And for people to be able to prop up people that are experiencing it, you need resources. You need the strength to be able to prop that person up. I want to pivot into the recovery-friendly community. I think sometimes, we can get to saying words because they sound sexy. But what does that mean? What does it look like for Detroit particularly to have an environment that is conducive and supportive to recovery for individuals?
When I say I'm ready, being able to get access to services, also increasing the workforce, both those folks that provide clinical services and the peer recovery workforce. And I think events like this, would normalize recovery, right? Make stuff like this something that goes on every weekend instead of just, once every couple months. I think that the city of Ann Arbor is a really good model of what recovery-friendly neighborhoods look like. And they have movie theaters that are for people that delegate 1 or 2 nights a week to movies for people in recovery. Coffee shops where they have meetings, all kinds of stuff. So I think there's some really brilliant opportunities here in the city, but some progress to be made.
Yeah, I would agree with Deb. Sober sections at larger events, increasing the workforce for sure. I'm sure any treatment center in the general area, the Metro Detroit area, they're probably all hiring for therapists and recovery coaches. And then quality of the workforce, people who want to stay in this area. And I'm sure we'll accept anyone who wants to be a coach, but it means something when you've made it through here, if that makes sense. Like a native or someone who can identify with you. I've had clients before, this particular place, and then they were able to talk about why that was significant for them, and so I think the environment, people that know the environment that's here pushing.
Education and exposure is so important. I'm talking about positive exposure and making help available. When I was trying to get clean, What would have helped me, I believe, before would have been a coach for my mother. My mother loved me to death, and I meant love me to death, or instead of love me to life. She needed a coach to tell her, let that boy hit bottom. Really, send him here, put him out the house, that kind of stuff. So a lot of time, coaches for parents would be very helpful, not just for the client themselves, but for the family. That would have been very helpful. I believe this being a community problem, a public disorder, a public health problem, we need to have more exposure into the faith-based community. Churches have their way of handling problems, but this is not a sin issue. So it should be approached as a sin issue. Likewise, in school, the schools need to have more exposure about substance use. We're talking about police departments, how they treat people at times who may be addicted, have mental health problems. There need to be approached. They're getting that way, but there's a long way we got to go. Some of my role models years ago were the Three Stooges. I'm not lying.
What?
I'm not lying. They said, slowly I turn, step by step. But we're getting there. But we got a long ways to go in touching our community. The same way you drive around the cities, you'll see beer stores and liquor stores everywhere. There need to be more exposure about substance use disorders, and there's help available. We should be able to go on every corner and see something about some of the resources as we do about drinking and drugging.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with each and every one of your points. And I'm not, to even piggyback off of you, Dwight, like I'm not anti anything for real. Like I don't want to, I think energy can be wasted trying to suppress something else. I think what's important is that we have the ability to amplify this. That just as readily as I can drive down the street and see a backwoods poster, like I go, I'm an artist, been rapping since forever. And so I'll go to, and you'll see people setting up booths at these open mics with backwoods backpacks and you see people wearing backwoods shirts and stuff like that. And it's like it almost become normalized, which is cool. I mean, we all have choice, but also what should be readily available is like, look, like we can live like this too. You know what I'm saying? Health, sober sections at events, access, family, togetherness, community, and it's available and ready for you if you choose to use it. I don't believe that anybody could have forced me to recover. Like I had to be willing to accept the resources and step into what it is that was available to me. And so I think that's very important. I think what's also the most important thing is you all. Like the destigmatization of addiction. Like the faces in here, like recovery and addiction it doesn't have a look. We come from all different environments, all different shapes and sizes, and there's still communities where there may be a stigmatized conversation. I know, Dwight, you mentioned something back in the green room about the opioid epidemic, but some of that misses the Black community, and some of that the Black community can't necessarily relate to when we almost feel like the difference between the crack epidemic and the opioid crisis, like there's a conversation there. And so it's like representation in all communities, as well as destigmatization, as well as you all being willing to, step into spaces and being open with your experience. You all be in the face of your own personal recovery, because the beautiful thing is when I talk to you, when I have a conversation about you and your experience, you might not come from where I come from, but that lifts me up and gives me exposure to new environments, new resources, and new experiences, and allows me to show up in my recovery even better. So I think the more that we prop each other up and the more that we leave here, and it's not just about these events. Yes, let's throw these events. Matter of fact, y'all throw the next one. Let's have these events, but also when we leave these spaces, let's continue this message. Let's continue the destigmatization, and let's continue to lean into our empowerment. Because each and every one of you are a representation of the empowerment of showing up for yourselves. I think the conversation has gone well to speak to the work that we do. But there would be no recovery, would be no work, would be no contribution to the work that you all contribute to if it wasn't for the contribution that you contribute to yourselves. So I do kind of want to turn the conversation to personal things. What are some things that you all do to take care of yourselves and be able to show up equipped to serve the community? And does that process ever quit? Or did y'all just land somewhere and it's like, oh, I'm good now?
It's an ongoing process, really. As I said, I'm a person of long-term recovery. And my original recovery, although I got clean in treatment, I didn't stay clean after treatment. Like most people I work with, I left treatment and bumped my head for a couple more years. And I ended up landing in self-help groups. And if I look at over the years, I had well over 30 years before I missed a week of making meetings. And I'm talking about working, being married, being divorced, being married, being divorced, going to school, getting a master's degree. My recovery always had to come first, no matter what. I'm talking about self-care. And that is what I reinforce, and I tell people, you gotta put yourself first before you can help anyone else. It's much like you say about the airplane, being on the plane, you gotta put your mask on first before you can help somebody else put their mask on, okay? So you gotta take care of yourself first. I still do things for myself as far as recovery related. I love laughing. You look at this face, I'm serious most of the time, but I look at shows on TV or go to comedy shows, things to make me laugh. I try to take care of myself spiritually also, no matter what. I have a 6-year-old grandson that I'm raising, and he is the joy of my life. He is the mini me. Those kind of things, he makes me laugh. He gets in the car and say, Granddad, I'm Granddad now, you're Dylan. He's the boss.
My recovery began back in 2000. And I did first couple of years, I did what they told me to. I let the program do the thinking for me. And then after that, I sustained my recovery for the most part through my relationship with my therapist and by being in a room with guys like this with 25 and 30 years of recovery. And getting some really wonderful opportunities to kind of embed that and learn and pick up those tools, because I had really good examples of the tools to pick up. And I still do that. I still, no, I'll call you back tomorrow, because right now I don't have the bandwidth to do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm stopping for a little bit and taking care of myself, my physical health. I'm not aging as gracefully as one would hope, but taking care of myself physically too is something that is important for me to contribute to my recovery.
When you said that, Bryce, I was thinking about self-care. That's like what are those words called? That a buzzword. Y'all, I'm the self-care queen, and all those types of things. And being in this field, self-care is crucial. And I think if you can get that locked down, it matters in terms of you being able to do a marathon versus a sprint. As a therapist, you get a chance to sit one-on-one with people, and they might say things that they've never revealed to anyone else. And oftentimes, some of those things, if you're an empathetic person, you might carry that weight. I can't believe this person survived through that, et cetera. So it's important. My colleagues and I, we always talk about self-care, and one thing that we, believe is that you can have it for a month straight, and because you're not disciplined, lose it. So we're always asking each other or encouraging each other to participate in things that we like. I like biking. Detroit is increasing their bike lanes and stuff. And so now, I can actually get out there and feel safe. I'm a painter and a traveler whenever I can, if the schedule permits. I'm a people watcher. I love to look at nature and, just marvel at how things are created and the beauty and how things work together. And so that's my way of connecting with, something that's not, traumatic, or draining or heavy outside of doing this work that's still beautiful.
Many people here, I'm quite sure, that are family members of people that have SUD issues. And it's so easy to get lost in the sauce, busy helping them, and you forget about yourself or other people in the family. It is so important, and we talk about also with caretaking. If you're not careful, the caretaker will get sicker than the care recipient. I'll underscore that again. If you're not careful, the caretaker will get sicker than the care recipient, which means you as the family member may get sicker than the person with the actual identified problem if you're not aware of what's happening and you don't take care of yourself. So it's so important when you're going through this thing of helping others that you remember to help yourself also in the process.
I think for me, there's these two words that are very dangerous to my recovery, and it is, I know. It's like the more I find out I don't know shit. And I think the moments where I feel like super sure be the moments I get humbled real quick. And so for me, it's using the words I don't know very freely and being willing to have the humility to admit when I'm wrong, when I don't know, and to get in rooms with people who do know, and to get around people who are willing to also admit when they don't know. Because the moment I'm in a room full of everybody who knows shit, I'm in the wrong room. That, and I think there are lots of things that I picked up over the years. Mindfulness, meditation. I just started a yoga practice. I wouldn't be able to do yoga in this suit, boy. This suit tight than a mug. I wouldn't be able to hit no tree pose in this. But, just doing things that maybe at one point in time I thought I wouldn't be able to do, I found myself climbing a tree the other day, I like water, and I think that's the beautiful thing about recovery. It allows for us to show up and discover what it is that we enjoy. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I spent a lot of energy on trying to continue to do something that was destructive. When I got that energy back, I had to do something with that energy. And part of what I was able to do with that energy is self-discovery, And the thing about me is I'm not the same me that I was 90 days ago. So I can't say I've discovered myself. There's always more discovery to be had. And that's the beautiful unfolding of this process we call life. And so I think that's the practices that I have. I think, and I also want to share a promise that's been delivered, is the ability to show up for life on life's terms. The ability, because things still get stole, things still get broke, people still die, things go weird, panelists drop out, and we still got to show up. Somebody got that in the back. We still got to show up, We still got to get up. And the beautiful thing about now is like, okay, and so my recovery pathway is 12-step. There are multiple pathways of recovery. Nobody has a monopoly on what's right. We all define our own recovery, right? But there's a thing in the big book that recently, like this season of my life, and I've been in recovery for 9 years, and this season is really starting to resonate with me. There's this passage in the big book that says, it's a promise, and it says, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. And some baffling things be happening nowadays. But like, I'll get pinged, like I'll know how to show up for it. And the only way that was able to be cultivated is I had to keep showing up, So that moment where y'all feel like, yo, like this is it, I gotta throw in the towel, this is too much. Like that moment on the other side of that is wisdom and strength unlike anything that we've ever known. So, I'd advise, I suggest, I try not to give advice, but I suggest just like keep showing up. And when it gets tough, pick up that phone and use that network. Grab somebody. Y'all lucky I don't make y'all turn to y'all neighbor in here and turn this into church. Like turn to y'all neighbor and introduce yourself. Because that's what community is. That's why we do this. So you can get introduced to new people and expand your network. Everybody in here is in here for advocacy of their recovery or the recovery of somebody else around them. So these are the people y'all need to know. Get a couple of numbers. I challenge you all to get a couple of numbers tonight and put them in your phone and use them when times get tough. Use them when times don't get tough. Use that muscle so that you don't have to hurry up and open that 1,000-pound door because you didn't creak the door a little bit every day, right? All right, Pastor Bryce is done preaching. Well, so are there? I did want to open it up before we closed out the panel for Q&A. Are there questions? Is there anything that we would want to ask the panelists? I don't want to put nobody on the spot, but if there's any questions you may have or any comments, I think comments are important as well, because what are you all's experience? What is it that you are seeing, and what do you think can be a contribution to the community that you're from? So I'm going to get up and take the mic to you first, and I'm gonna come over to Timur.
Hi there. Ironically, my name is Phoenix. So I briefly, since it is a long one, I just wanted to share a little bit of my journey, how I got here and what lessons I learned from it that corresponds to a lot of what you're saying. I grew up in Detroit. I grew up very, very, I wouldn't even say dirt poor, because we couldn't afford dirt when I was growing up. So we just had, I lived out in various sections of Metro Detroit, but most of the time was sort of in the projects, in the streets. And I didn't have parents who showed up for me, and I mostly just had to make my way on my own. And one of the earliest ways I remember connecting with one of my parents was through drinking, because my father was a very severe alcoholic. He would sometimes lock himself in his room for days on end rather than talk to me, just so he could drink. And the only way I could get him out is if I shared a beer with him. And this was very young. I don't want to set any bad examples for the kids in here, but I was around their age. Some of the kids you see walking around here, I was around their age when I started. And he went away from my life for a long time. I had to move out of that area in general just to go to a better school. And I still carried those habits with me, because at that point, alcohol and some other substances were pretty much all I had. And I didn't have parents, so that was the only thing I could take to sort of reassure me that something was still there. Eventually, I kept digging. We always talk about hitting rock bottom. I kept digging so many more bottoms for myself that I didn't think I could get any lower, and then something else would happen. And I felt perpetually like a victim, even though a lot of it was stuff I was doing to myself. And at one point, this was actually after overdosing on a lot of other stuff I don't want to talk about here, but this was years ago, by the way. I'm free of any charges. But exactly. But at that point, when I finally came out of that, I was like, that was close, and I do not want to start taking life for granted anymore. So I decided to go cold turkey off of everything. I moved in with family members who were able to very graciously help me with all of my medical problems that I'd had since childhood from doing all of this. And I kept, it was not that easy of a process. I don't want to make it sound like I suddenly quit overnight. That was not the case. But the biggest hurdle that I was able to get over was when I finally, after years of not speaking to me, my father reached out to me. And he told me at the time that he was also sober. At that point, I'd been sober for about 6 months. And he told me that he was looking for someone to help him. And of course, me being me, still wanting that and doing whatever I could to get Daddy out of his room, I went to him. And it turned out it was all a lie. He'd been drinking from day one, had no intention of stopping, and was trying to pull me back into that hole with him because he just wanted company. He drove everyone else in his life away, and he just wanted somebody there to suffer with him. And the day that I relapsed and I knew that I messed up, he handed me another beer, and I realized this man is going to kill me. So I left. I checked myself into an AA meeting for the first time in my life. I was scared to do it with other people who were my age because I was so scared of relaying my experiences to them, because I felt like, well, maybe they'll say, like, I have a mom who drinks on the side and this and that, and then I would just come out with like this horror story of my life, basically, at that point. And instead, I checked into AA with some older people, and that was actually better for me because the way that all of their stories flowed and the way that they were able to keep sober every day just by doing something every day just got me to realize maybe I'm all I have. At the end of the day, I'm still enough, and I got to fight for me. And I won't pretend that I didn't have one or two little slip-ups since that time. Maybe one day out of, like, I would like count the days up, and then maybe something would go horribly wrong for me one day, and before I knew it, I'd had a drink, and I was like, oh, darn it. I was so close to hitting that 365. At this point now, it's been almost 2 years, and honestly, it's the truth. Like, fear of ending up like my parents used to motivate me, and now it is the idea that again, I'll wind this up, but a lot of people say, you know, you regret the things that you don't do the most, and for me, I regret the time that I spent drinking and devoted my time to that when I could have spent that working on more things within myself and making the most of where I was at that time in my life. Because at that time, you know, when I was younger, I just wanted to escape from my situation. And I know that nowadays, now that I'm sober, I notice more, I feel connected with people more, and I make the most out of the opportunities that I'm given. And I don't want to lose that. So that motivates me more than anything. And knowing that I am enough on my own and the things that I can do on my own keeps me where I am. And I'd like to keep going that way. So yeah, I know you had talked about it being a family issue. And to that point, you know, my family are what they are and they will do what they will do. All I can do is try to do the best for me and make sure that if any other family comes into my life, that I'm there to support them no matter what happens to them, even if they do, because you can't totally stop it from happening to other people, but what you can do is offer them, you know, what you have to give. And I have a lot of experience that I can tell them, hey, you know, you can continue down this path, but it's not going to end up well. And the reason why I'm here is because I stopped. That's all I know how to do. I just want to, you know, be a better person than what I was and better person than what I was used to growing up.
I just want to say to you, let go of that regret, because every minute of that contributed to the enough that you are right now.
Yeah, I second that. And I think a lot of times, like, we don't know how we help people, but I can almost guarantee you just shared something that somebody felt in this room. You know, so just you being here, just you existing is a contribution to this community. And thank you for your transparency and for sharing your experience. If you're quitting, don't cold turkey. Seek treatment, because you know, alcohol, benzos, these things. If we try to do cold turkey, stories differ, and I've heard of stories. I know of stories where that's not safe. It could be deadly. So please seek treatment.
My name is Tamara. So I just have a question, actually. I wanted to ask, like, how can one become more involved in becoming a recovery coach?
It's kind of a convoluted process to be, if we're talking about barriers
I do
and being
convoluted all the
recovery
time.
friendly.
Yeah. Very well,
But
too.
the way to begin that process is by completing the Connecticut Center for Addiction and Recovery's Recovery Coach Academy.
Mhm.
We are offering that in March at Share Academy.
How long of a...
It's 30 hours.
Okay.
We're kind of crunching it into 2 weekends in March.
Okay.
Information will be up as of the beginning of the week on echodetroit.org's website. So that's the place to start. There are actually 2 credentials. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible.
Yeah.
There are 2 credentials available in the state of Michigan right now. One of them is the CPRM, or the Certified Peer Recovery Mentor credential, through the Michigan Credentialing Board of Addiction Professionals.
Okay.
That credential is nationally recognized. There is also a Certified Peer Recovery Coach credential available through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
But in order to get into that training, you have to be employed for 10 hours a week So you have to complete the C-card training
Right, first.
to complete a development plan to get employed, to get into the state training.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
And what is the requirement? Does it cost anything to go through that program?
Recovery coach training that we are offering is free.
Free 99.
We like free. We like free. We like free.
Good evening, everybody. So what's up? So my name is Dart. I work at Community Health Awareness Group. And the truth is, I am not a person in recovery, but I'm a person who supports the recovery community. And it's amazing how the recovery community helped shape my career and my destiny. I never would have thought that I would have been so in tune with people who are in recovery and to the point that I carry to other arenas of my life. So when I hear somebody say, well, I've been clean for 30 days, we could be in a random room, and I'm like, and people are like, why are you doing that? I'm like, oh, you don't understand. Just clap for them real quick, and I'll teach to you later, right? And I think it's really essential because the recovery community really gives a really important message that's really about community and what that looks like and what that means to us, meaning that no matter my background, there's a space for me. No matter my journey, there's a space for me. No matter my battle, there's a space for me. And so as we look at recovery and what it means as a city, as a community, we have to start creating spaces for everybody and, across the tandem of the different organizations. And so when we talk to people and being able to really meet them where they really are and being able to be client-centered or family-centered and say, hey, you know what? This is where you are today. What do you need from us to get you to the next place? So when I look at what's happening in this room, I'm amazed about how recovery has impacted so many people. So as a person who is not in recovery, but I'm part of the community, I'm so proud of everybody in here who's in recovery because when it got tough, you didn't quit. And so I want you to know that we see all of your hard work and we celebrate every victory that you have. And so if it gets tough again, remember back to this space and this community and to know that you can get back up and keep going again. So I'm Dart, everybody. Vote for me for mayor one day. All right. All right. So
my name is Muhammad. I'm an alcoholic. I'm from Ann Arbor, and I just have a suggestion. I was thinking if we could make recovery more fun, because coming to this little event, I feel good, sitting here with good people, eating some good food, and talk about positivity. If we make recovery more fun, it'll be better, because I'm at a Spera, it's a small space, but I want to be there and I want to recover. I want to stay sober, so I'm doing whatever it takes to stay in the program. But like yesterday, me and a couple of my peers, we went to YMCA, and it was not part of what they were suggesting for us to do, but we came up with the idea and we went to the YMCA. We worked out, we ran a little bit, and I think that's a good idea to add that to the program, where there's more fun activities in these treatment centers, It helps out a lot. That's all I have.
My name's Chad Gimbel. I'm on a felony drug court for armed robbery I committed in the midst of my daughter's mother being found dismembered in Detroit. And just wanted to get some support for Kayla's law, where immediately when a person's reported missing, it goes directly to state police. It was Livingston County, Detroit police, and then the car was given back, her car, and there's blood found in it. And, I'm on my third relapse, and I'm grateful for the city of Ann Arbor for another chance. But, I think some obstacles can be removed for people. And, I'm just grateful for people still supporting me and for the recovery community out there.
My name's Lesha. You spoke about barriers to services for adults, but I work with adolescents in recovery in Michigan's first free public recovery high school. And we are having a hard time with getting access to services for adolescents. Currently, there's no inpatient detox treatment center for adolescents. In order for them to go to treatment, they have to go out of state. We go to meetings every day, but usually maybe there's one young person's meeting. So I'm dragging them by their teeth to go to meetings. So any ideas or resources for adolescents in recovery?
Odyssey House has some really cool adolescent outpatient programs going I don't know that they offer inpatient, but you bring up a very good point. I mean, about at what point do we intervene, and at what, why does it take somebody who's 17 years old 3 trips to the hospital and an arrest to wind up where they can get access to services? I am so excited about the Recovery High School.
Come hang out with us.
That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
We're actually trying to get, speaking of recovery-friendly communities, one of our goals coming up is to develop a collegiate recovery group at Wayne County Community College. So creating those spaces like we were talking about, there's so many events, athletic events, theater, concerts that go on here in Detroit, that a collegiate recovery group could help create that safe space for folks that age to feel like they're supported.
What you said over the last 30 years, I know to be true. And that's a shame before God that in 30 years' time, I worked in the field referring people, and they had to go out of state then. Now it's the same thing. Let's make it happen, make something happen differently. Really, we got to get together and advocate.
These kids want to be in recovery. That's a requirement to go to this school. And yeah.
There are over 23 million people in the United States that identify as being in recovery. And those are just the folks that choose to identify as being in recovery. If you took them all and put them in one state, it would be the 3rd largest state in the union. Now that is a hell of a constituency. So things like what you're talking about, and what I was talking about getting a seat at the table. Why aren't people like you at the table helping make decisions about where that funding goes, right? And the way that we do that is showing up at those school board meetings, showing up at those city council meetings, showing up in those spaces and bringing 2 or 3 people with you. Next time you show up, you get 12, right? So I just wanted to kind of, I'm a big on the advocacy piece, and I think that that's a vital, it's an obligation that we have to the community to make sure that those resources continue to be available.
To speak to people in the room who you may not be in recovery, but you have a family member or a friend, and maybe you've lost touch with them, or maybe some of the activities that they've done in the past have, put a strain on your relationship. If there's an opportunity for you to reconnect with them, I encourage that highly, because I can't tell you how many people have discovered themselves after going through a treatment program, and you are missing out on an amazing person that has took the time to meet themselves and develop and continue to blossom. So I'm just encouraging for people to, if you're not in recovery, to be an ally and to continue with these conversations and activities, because you really don't know the gravity of showing up for someone. And I'll share this briefly. I had a chance to go to a convention where they had a countdown. So I'm sure quite a few people in the room know what a countdown is. My space that I was standing in was in the back of the room, and people clapped for everyone who had the 50 and 40 and 20 some odd years. And this was me newly in the field when I had attended this conference. Whatever. And when they got down to 24 hours and people were standing on their chairs, if you didn't know someone in recovery, that was enough for you to see that this is what community looks like. This is what unconditional love looks like. This is what changes lives. This is what keeps people together, no matter the type of things that have disconnected them from a healthy living.
My name is Ryan. I'm a Phoenix volunteer. One of you, I believe it was Deb, had talked about like one of the challenges of being in the field that you're in is not having a seat at the table. And like being underrepresented if you do get a seat at the table. And, like, I've been watching the news a lot the past number of years, and it's not always easy. But they keep talking about fixing the roads and stuff. But like I've been told, I don't know how many times in my life, just write a letter to your congressman, like about whatever And is there anything besides that you might recommend in terms of increasing political awareness of the needs of the recovery community?
One of the big things, the big issues that's being discussed at the moment is the allocation of the opioid settlement money. That information about that is available on the state's website. I would suggest that everybody kind of pay attention to the little newspaper blips that get buried in the third page about where that money's going. And if you get the opportunity to advocate to be on one of the committees locally that's deciding where that money is going, if you get the opportunity to provide comment publicly on where that money is going, please do, because I'm gonna go on a limb here, but I responded to a questionnaire, and you could prioritize your responses. And under every question, there was at least one that had to do with medication. Now, I'm all about medication-assisted treatment and that as a pathway to recovery and all of that, support that. But I will just be damned if I'm going to watch these people turn around and put that money right back in the hands of the pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Here.
So show up at your city council meetings, man. Their city council meetings are passing local ordinances on medical marijuana dispensaries. Pay attention to what's on the agenda at your local city council meetings. Run for office. Then you get the opportunity to appoint people to those committees, right? So there's a lot of opportunity, and it starts locally. Pay attention when it comes time for your sheriff to be elected. Pay attention to what their record on substance use disorders is,
So Ryan for governor? All right. So we'll wrap this conversation up. I want to thank you all for coming out and being participants in this conversation. This could not happen without you. You being out here has been proof of concept that there is awareness, there is excitement, there is energy surrounding recovery and a contribution to this community here in Detroit. How many of y'all going to the game? Oh yeah, we're gonna have a good time. Let me y'all make some noise for the game. So, everybody on the panel, I want to go around real quick. How can we keep in touch with you, and what are some calls to action, if any, that you have before we get up out of here?
I think we all need to get more involved. Many of us are involved, but there's a deeper level of involvement, like the iceberg. This is the tip of the iceberg, and all this underneath, we need to get more involved. My office number is 313-894-1445. I will repeat that, 313-894-1445. The website is shareinc.org.
And my email address is dgarrett@echodetroit.org. Please feel free to keep in touch. Ways to get involved. As I said, I'm big on advocacy. Everything down from getting involved at state policy level to the language that we use. We can kind of unintentionally use stigmatizing language, and even being aware of the language that we use is important. And recovery, sobriety starts in a treatment center. Recovery starts in a treatment center, but the recovery happens back in the communities.
And you can find me at events like this. I'm usually in the Metro Detroit area, but email address to contact me at is thebuilduptoday@gmail.com.
And so it's not an event that's mine, but my calling card is my name, right? So if you Google my name, I'll pop up on everything. My name is Bryce the Third, right? My name is Bryce the Third. Bryce the Y'all can't forget it. So now reach out to me, hit me up if you're going through it. Hit me up on Instagram. My number's out there. You can call me. You can come get my card. I am here for you all, just like you all are here for me. Do me a favor and show up for yourself today. That's all you got to do. And when tomorrow get here, try to do the same thing, but just focus on today, all right? We can't sustain today's recovery off of yesterday's work, all right? So let's get ready to have some fun. A couple of things with the Phoenix. If you haven't downloaded the Phoenix app, go download the Phoenix app. All of our programming is free to anybody with just 48 hours of sobriety. If you'd like to know how to get involved with volunteerism, this Detroit chapter is growing exponentially, and the way we're able to do it is through volunteering. So come holler at me or holler at a volunteer, and we'll figure out how to get you started. And if you would like to talk about donation or being able to contribute to the organization, feel free to holler at me or anybody else here that works for the Phoenix. Also, if you're looking for something to listen to, I also co-host the Phoenix podcast, Rise, Recover, Live, with my co-host Liz, who is in Florida. It's a good listen. If you just want something to keep some recovery in your ears, feel free to tune into that. And enjoy the rest of your evening, and enjoy the game if you go into the game, and I'll see you over there. Make some noise for yourselves.
I woke up this morning, I hate where I'm going, I feel so right. The sun shining on me and I don't wanna storm me, and I don't understand why you so uptight.